There are two kinds of news in this world. One you see in public. The other, I hope you never meet in person.
Morning at 4:11, an empty apartment called the night desk and asked for one hallway light to be turned off. The problem was 1107 was empty. It had been empty for a little over 2 weeks. I checked the call log on the desk phone right away. Nothing. Archive file 04-11, Riverside Court, North Building. The handwritten note clipped to this file is short. It says, if 1107 calls before handoff, kill the hall light first. Ask questions after. The statement below was copied from the overnight desk binder of Leon Price, building security. The worst calls on a night desk are the vague ones. If somebody says their key will not work, fine, you know what that is. If somebody says a man is sleeping in the laundry room, also fine. Not fun, but clear. But if the phone rings at 4 in the morning and somebody says, "Can you do something about the light?" that can eat half an hour of your shift and still leave you with nothing to show for it. That was what I thought the first time Unit 1107 called me. The problem was, 1107 was empty. It had been empty for a little over 2 weeks. The old tenant was out. The carpet guys had already come through. Paint touch-ups were scheduled for Friday. I knew it was empty because I had walked that floor twice with maintenance after a small leak in 1105. The call came at 4:11. I remember the time because it was close enough to hand off to annoy me. The desk phone flashed 1107. I picked up. Security desk. At first, all I heard was line hiss. Then a woman said very softly, "Can you shut that hall light off?" "Ma'am, please, he just went down." The line disconnected. I checked the call log on the desk phone right away. Nothing. No extension record. No dropped internal. No trace. I checked it again because old systems lag sometimes. Still nothing. That part mattered. If you are working a quiet desk at night, you do not watch every camera. Nobody does. You watch the ones that matter. Main entrance, garage vestibule, package room, whatever floor has active work on it. That week, I already had one side monitor sitting on the 11th floor elevator lobby because of the paint prep. The hallway was empty. The elevator doors were shut. No one was standing outside 1107. I grabbed my flashlight, signed out from the desk, and ran my route in the same order I always used. Night patrol is not random if you're doing it right. You build a route and you stick to it. Same doors, same corners, same problem spots. That way, when something changes, you know it changed. I went mailroom, service hall, north elevator, then up to 11. The hall outside 1107 looked normal. One ceiling can near the turn was too bright, same as always. The wall light across from 1107 was on. The carpet runner had a dark line where the painters had dragged plastic over it earlier in the week. I stopped at the unit and did what anybody who actually works nights does before knocking. No light from inside. I listened. Nothing. I looked at the frame. Maintenance seal still there. The knob was locked. No voices, no TV, no movement. Just the wall light throwing a thin bar across the threshold. I stood there a few extra seconds because of the way the woman had said, "He just went down." Not scared, not dramatic. Tired. like she had already asked for this before. I went back downstairs and tried to forget it. The next morning at 4:11, 11:07 called again. Same dead line hiss, same woman's voice. Please turn it off before he comes back up. Who is this? The line clicked dead. This time I shut the wall light off from the hallway breaker panel before I went back to the desk. The call did not come again that morning. That should have made me feel better. It did not. It made it worse. Because now the thing had rules, and once a building problem has rules, it stops feeling like noise. I started waiting for it. Every morning around 4:08, I would check the desk phone, pull the 11th floor camera onto the side monitor, and keep my keyring close. At 4:11, the call came. Not almost every morning. Every morning. If the wall light was still on, the woman asked me to turn it off. If I had already killed it, sometimes she said nothing at all. Sometimes she just breathed once into the receiver and hung up. The call never appeared in the log after. That was when I opened the paper shift binder. Every building says it has gone digital. Every building still has paper where the real memory lives. Riverside kept a thick black binder under the desk with bad handwriting from 6 years of overnight guards, temp guards, relief guards, and one old porter who wrote like he was angry at the page. I flipped back through the current month first. Nothing. Then the previous month. Nothing. Then I found a note in the inside margin of a page from the prior winter. Not in my writing. Not in my supervisor's either. 11:07 before handoff equals kill hall light first. No initials, no explanation. That alone was enough to make me stop and look back at the monitor. Empty hall, quiet floor, bright rectangle from the elevator sign spilling onto the wall. I asked Carmen about it when she came in to relieve me that Friday. Carmen had done enough overnight work to know the difference between a funny story and a useful one. She looked at the note and said, "You finally got 11:07? Finally? Haven't heard that in a while. What is it?" She leaned on the desk and looked toward the side monitor like the floor might explain itself if she stared long enough. Woman named Teresa Alvarez used to live there with her son. Kid had trouble with sudden light. Noise, too. Elevators bothered him on bad mornings. Teresa worked a late cleaning shift downtown. She would get home around 4. If he had finally calmed down, she would call the desk and ask whoever was on to kill the light across the hall before she opened the door. Why the light? Because it cut under the gap and across the far wall. She said if he saw that stripe move, he started over. Started over what? Everything. That sat with me. Not because it explained the call, because it explained the tone. This was not some random haunting line. It was a work request somebody had made too many times while tired. I asked what happened to them. Boy got sick, Carmen said. Not all at once, just one of those long messes where people keep saying, maybe next month. Teresa kept working anyway. Then he did not make it through spring. She left maybe 6 months later. No clue, just left. If she had died, your brain can put the story in one drawer. If she just left, it means the building may be holding on to a routine long after the person who made it needed it. That felt worse. That kind of thing sticks to a building. Not because the building cares, because workers keep repeating one small, useful act until the act starts to outlive the people who asked for it. For the next few shifts, I started checking 11 the way you check a problem unit after you have decided it might become your problem. Not dramatically, just carefully. At 3:50, I would pull the floor camera up on the side monitor. At 4, I would look at the wall light on the screen and make sure it was still on. At 4:05, I would keep my patrol key on the desk instead of clipped to my belt. At 4:08, I would stop whatever half-finished note I was writing and wait. Most of your shift is dull. Then one small thing gets promoted. It becomes the thing you watch. There were other details too. The hall call from 1107 only came if the wall light across from the unit was on full. If building services had tripped the breaker earlier in the night, there was no call. If I dimmed it before 4:11, there was usually no call. If I got lazy and told myself I could do it after the first ring, the line would go dead faster, like whoever was on the other end had already spent too much time waiting. I also noticed the elevator on that side behaved differently on those mornings. Not enough for a work order, just enough to make me notice. That may sound like too much attention for one empty unit. It was not. That is how night work goes. Most of your shift is dull. Then one small thing gets promoted. It becomes the thing you watch. It becomes the thing you build around. By then, I could feel my whole last hour of the shift tightening around that one light, that one hallway, and that one phone call that should not have existed. At around 4:10, the car would sit on 10 or 12 longer than usual, then settle at 11, like it was waiting for somebody to make up their mind. One Thursday, I tried a dumb test. I left the wall light on, but cracked the service closet door halfway down the hall, so the corridor looked different on camera. At 4:11, the phone still rang. Same unit, same woman. "Not that one," she said. "The one by the door." Then she hung up. That was useful. It meant the request was not vague after all. It was exact. The light mattered. The one across from 1107, the one that cut under the door. Nothing else got the call started. I went up to 11 before sunrise and stood in the hallway outside 1107 with the wall light off. The hall looked smaller that way. The elevator panel reflected farther than you expect. Door numbers looked flatter. You hear the air return at the end of the hall because nothing bright is cutting across your sightline anymore. I stood there and tried to picture a woman coming off a cleaning shift, key ring in one hand, lunch bag in the other, hoping the person downstairs remembered one small thing before she opened the door. After that, I kept doing it. At 4:10, I would kill the wall light outside 1107. The phone usually stayed quiet on the mornings I remembered. Usually. On the mornings I got pulled off the desk, it rang. Once because a delivery driver hit the wrong call box and woke up half the first floor. Once because the garage gate jammed open in sleet. Once because a resident on 9 swore somebody had kicked his door when really his teenager had locked herself out and was too embarrassed to say so. That last one made me late. By the time I cleared it and sat back down, the desk clock read 4:12. The phone was already ringing. 1107. I picked up. Security desk. This time the woman's voice was sharper. Not louder, just tighter. "It is still on. I'm sorry. I'm going now. Please hurry." Then, after one beat, "He thinks it means somebody is at the door." That was enough to get me moving. I took the stairs because the elevator was on 12 and I did not want to wait for it. By the time I hit 11, my legs were burning and the hall light was still on, bright and clean against the carpet. The hall itself looked empty. Of course it did. I cut the light at the panel. The whole stretch outside 1107 dropped into softer shadow. Then I heard something from behind the sealed door. Not speech, not footsteps, just a small, quick sound. Like a bed frame tapping a wall once. Then a hand moving over fabric. I froze and listened. You hear a lot in apartment buildings at that hour. Water in pipes, ice clicking in old metal. Someone 2 floors down shutting a microwave with more force than they think. I know that. This was close enough to belong to that unit. Then I heard a woman say, very low, the way you talk to somebody who is finally slowing down, "There you go. That is better." After that, silence. No movie moment. No shape under the door. No knob turning. Just the kind of quiet you get after a small crisis inside a home has passed, and nobody outside knows it happened. Then I looked down and saw something on the carpet. A folded square of construction paper pushed halfway out from under the gap. Old. The kind kids use for school projects. One side had been covered in marker years ago. Most of the writing was rubbed away, but I could still make out a few words in big, uneven letters. No big light. There was a sun drawn under it with a thick red X. I put the paper in an incident envelope and did not tell day shift where I found it. The next day, I asked Carmen if Teresa's son had made signs. She nodded right away. "All the time," she said. "Rules for himself, rules for her, rules for everybody." "No big light?" "Yeah, that sounds like him." "What was his name?" "Mateo." I wrote it down on a sticky note and stared at it longer than I needed to. Names make things heavier. Once I had the boy's name, it stopped being a trick the building was doing and started feeling like something the building had failed to forget. The calls kept coming for another week. Not every morning in the same way, but always at 4:11 if I forgot. Sometimes the woman asked for the light. Once she said, "Could you do it before he sees it?" Once she only said, "Thanks." That last one got me more than it should have. There is something rough about being thanked for work nobody on the current lease can remember asking for. After that, I moved it from memory to routine. 410, 11th floor wall light, off. Not because I believed I was talking to ghosts through the desk phone, because somebody once needed that done every single morning, and the building seemed unwilling to let the request go unanswered. Leasing turned 1107 2 months later. Before they moved in, maintenance asked if I wanted the wall light repaired because the switch at the panel had gotten loose from overuse. I told them yes. Then I told them to put the replacement on a dimmer. Leasing turned 1107 2 months later. Young couple, new rug, big fake plant outside the door for the first week because they did not know where else to put it. That was true, just not the whole truth. I do not know whether Teresa Alvarez is alive. I do not know whether Mateo ever got easier mornings. I do not know whether what I heard behind that sealed door belonged to memory, wiring, grief, or something simpler that buildings do when enough people repeat the same act of care in the same place for long enough. The maintenance file for 1107 includes a later handwritten addendum under corridor lighting. Keep dawn level soft on North 11 if possible. No reason is given.